I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Gun Totin' Minnesota. My name is Andrew, and today I have the privilege of telling you about the Summit Precision 9-inch carbon fiber threaded barrel for 1022 Charger pistols, as you've seen here. My wife helped me do some MAG dumps with it, some testing reliability on the Charger platform. Really big fan of Ruger Chargers in general, and putting this barrel on there made me love it all the more. A couple of the quick stats for you. Yes, it's carbon fiber, it's sleeved, for 1022 pattern rifles. That carbon fiber adds pretty good amount of stiffness and rigidity to the lightweight barrel underneath. You can see that there are multiple color offerings on the website if you head out to summit-precision.com. Lots of options. This isn't the only one. This is just the one that I specifically picked, and it's kind of a black typical carbon fiber look. It just looks very good, all blacked out in my opinion. The length is 9 inches, but you can get it multiple lengths. Mine happens to start as a .92 at the receiver, and then it goes down to a .9055 or close to that at the muzzle. The material is 4116R stainless. The twist rate is 1/16, was just fine for me, especially with what I was shooting. It's chambered in 22 LR, and it has a Bent's chamber, which is important to know about a Bent's chamber. If you've never had one of those before, don't shoot hypervelocity ammo out of a Bent's style chamber. It's just not made for that with chamber pressures. But the match ammo I ran was really great, even through my can, which is threaded 1/28. This is a 1/28 barrel, of course, as all standard 22s are. And that ammo ran phenomenally. No issues with subsonics or supersonics that were up to the average threshold for what you needed for chamber pressure and back pressure. These barrels can be had for under $350, which is pretty impressive when it comes to this level of customization and quality. My plan for this video, as a first look for the internet and for especially my channel, I just want to shoot it a bunch. I'll try it a little bit long range. I'm going to go out past 300 yards with it. Believe it or not, a 9-inch barrel. Pretty great consistency out there. I'm going to get it as dirty as possible and see what it can handle, what the chamber can handle, and what my can handle with it. I'm going to practice with it in some hunting scenarios, and then I'm also going to just MAG dump it a whole lot of times and have some fun with it, because I think a lot of people look at a barrel like this as a plinking device, as something for fun, and I'm going to try to cover all the gamut of the ways I see people using it and the way I see myself using it. So here you go. Here's some footage, and let's start off with the 330 yard shooting and my experience there. This should be a fascinating little experiment. I have my 10-round magazine loaded up. I have that Summit Precision 9-inch carbon fiber barrel. I do have a can on the end of this Ruger Charger. I'm at 330 yards, and I think I can put my spotter up here so you can get some of the footage of hits. I am shooting a really thick target. There's like no way you'll hear it, but you might be able to see it if I use my spotting camera. And I'm going to try to use the Fortis on this little pistol setup. Very unique application. Never tried it, but if it can work here, it could probably work everywhere. And then I'll switch over to a more traditional rifle to try out more with the Fortis in a prone position, but it's actually looking pretty favorable so far. I think this is going to work. Okay, I will say that the barrel made it 800 rounds suppressed without like really falling off. And then, you know, being that it's pretty dirty ammo, I did have some fall off there, around 800 rounds suppressed. All I ever did in that 800 rounds was I took a little wipe, like not a wet wipe, a dry wipe, and wiped the inside of the chamber, and I put a drop of lube on the bolt. Whether that helps or not, I don't know, but I did put some on there around 800 rounds, and suppressed 22 is just so dirty, and this is no different. So I'm not too surprised that I had to run the bore snake through once. We'll see what that does. I'm actually going to shoot on a clay now, see what happens with that. All right, let's go for that clay a few times. Now I clean the barrel and see what happens. Should be able to get close. Oh man, wow. So the nice thing about shooting off a rest like this, first of all, is I can kind of like keep the same angle the whole time, and so when it recoils, it doesn't really lose its footing. I have this bipod in the grass, it stays where it should, and then this on the back here, these rubber feet aren't going to bounce around or move. It's very grippy on the mat actually, and my brace, which what that is, my brace stayed right where it was. So that was a fun little experiment. I can't believe how consistent this barrel actually is. You have to remember, it's windy. Look at that flag. Okay, it's fairly windy. I'm shooting subsonic 22. It's probably right on the edge of subsonic, not properly subsonic really. But aside from that, I'm shooting a 9-inch carbon fiber barrel. Holy cats, guys, it's actually fairly repeatable. That's a somewhat, yeah, I would say it's like a 2-ish MOA size target if I'm shooting at that clay. And normally that'd be a very small target with a precision 22 anyways at 330 yards. But to get as close as I am with a 9-inch carbon fiber barreled 22 pistol, I am blown away. That's very acceptable, absolutely. Now you notice something, I did need to clean it. After 800 rounds suppressed, I think that's beyond what most people are gonna do. You should clean your barrels, treat them right. I just wanted to do that to see where is that drop off, and I would say it was around 700 to 800 I noticed. Yeah, accuracy is not what it was, and that was probably more to do with the bolt face and how it was just so caked, absolutely caked full of powder and lead residue and everything else. Running a bore snake through is all I did, and then I took a Q-tip and just touched up the bolt face really quickly off camera here. That's all I did, and we were back at it again. My standard deviations were back to more acceptable. And man, I think even with better ammo, I'll get better results. I'm so impressed. This is a nice little combo between the Fortis from Lacritas and the barrel here from Summit Precision. This thing is absolutely wicked. And of course, I had to have a capable optic and the Discovery 1-8, shooting on about 6 power. It's the most I usually shoot it around, 6 or 7. That does just fine. Enough elevation to get me out there. And if you're curious what I was using for elevation, that was 18.5, which is plenty. It's important to reiterate that this 9-inch carbon fiber barrel is not going to get the same burn as a 16-inch full-length barrel or 18-inch or a 20-inch 22 barrel, and that's not the purpose of a shorter barrel like this. It's not to capitalize on that part, it's to capitalize on suppressibility, also weight, and then aesthetic appeal. I find that running it with this chassis here from, it was at Enoch Industries, this is their Deep 6, I've probably said that a million times so far, with a can, this is now a really reasonable package. It's so small and convenient for hunting. I'm actually looking at some coyote prints right here. It's snowing out, and these prints, oh wow. These prints that I'm looking at right now, they must be minutes old. I'm assuming that right before I came over here, that this coyote ran through right, man, I just missed him. I could have had a coyote with this, which would have been really fun. He's got to be close by. There's not even snow buildup in the tracks, not any at all. And I can see he was tracking a rabbit, which I've also been trying to shoot. So we're after the same thing, it looks like. But anyways, a shorter barrel like this, it's great for hunting, it's great for small game and close around the building, around the house or the shop types of tasks. It's really easy to throw in a backpack. That's why people are going to be going for this. It's not because it's going to get every single advantages that you might see with like a 20-inch carbon fiber barrel. It's going to have some of its own unique advantages. So I just want to remind people that this should not be seen as a replacement for your full-size barrel in any sort of way. The company themselves, Summit Precision, has full-length barrels for your 1022 builds if you want to capitalize on those things. But if you're in a pistol configuration, you'd be hard-pressed to find something better than this. Definitely aesthetically, performance-wise, from what I'm seeing here, it's outperforming the barrel, the big, thick steel barrel that I had on it. And I think it probably suppresses just a tiny bit better, but you still have to find for yourself the ammo that it likes. And I did find some ammos that it doesn't like. They weren't great before. In the standard barrel, the stock barrel that I got with my Ruger Charger pistol, they were already giving me some hang-up issues. Something about feeding wasn't going right, and it wasn't magazine related. I tested that. It just doesn't like to chamber in this very well. Could even be my bolt, I suppose. Could be my bolt. But there's just a couple ammos that were cheap, they were junky, and I just don't think you should use ammo like that when it comes to rimfire. It's so affordable to go to the match and better quality ammo. So I'm going to recommend when you test out your barrel and you start seeing what it likes, go for better quality ammo, especially if you're going to run it suppressed, because you don't want baffle strikes and you don't want hang-ups. And I'll probably show you what a hang-up looks like in just a second. There's one right there. It doesn't like that one. So the really, really cheap gunky ammo like Thunderbolt, something about that doesn't go well with this pistol. Doesn't like to extract, looks like. And that's fine with me. I don't have much of that ammo anyways. I was just trying to burn through some of it, quite frankly, and it's not worth dealing with failures to extract. So just stick to your better quality ammo. That's my advice. Now, when it comes to the subsonic portion, you can't go crazy low the way that you would with FPS with a bolt action. Bolt action, obviously, reliability and ejection and feeding is a little bit more controlled. There's less moving parts. So I have some really slow ammo. This is running, I think, about 950 out of a 16-inch. I'm going to guess it's about 910 out of this 9-inch barrel. And this stuff is going to have trouble cycling, again, because it's so low. You would have trouble running this out of a full-length barrel probably anyways. Let's go ahead and try it out of the pistol. It is super quiet. It's crazy quiet, but reliability is going to be a thing. One more time. And one more time. We did have a failure. That almost worked. I almost wonder if I can get this stuff to get going. Maybe with a better can design. I have an Anico X can coming in. That can might run this a little better, but with this Sparrow, I don't believe the combination is going to work together that low in velocity. If I just add another 50 feet per second, I'm golden, and I'm still very quiet and excellent for hunting. Yep. I don't believe that slow in velocity is going to end up working, and that's just fine because that's on the slower end of the spectrum when it comes to subsonics. I don't typically shoot stuff that's over 1100 feet per second, not intentionally anyways, but if you do choose to run something that's closer to that 1100, 1200 feet per second, and you're not too worried about your can, if that's fine with you, this is what the functionality is going to be. And I found this across the board with supersonics. I found that it's working really well with a can on. It's still very quiet. The loudest sound of what is going on right there is just the action. It's about 25 yards, and I'm not hearing much for a sonic crack. So in a hunting scenario, I still feel like it doesn't give up your position very much. It's not going to disturb too much for too long. And I find reliability is 100%. So in hunting scenarios, some of you want that extra velocity, and you might be just fine right around that 1100 feet per second marker. With a 9-inch barrel, it's probably just subsonic, and that's maybe why it's so quiet for me right here. Depends on your elevation, depends on the temperature outside, the ammo you're running. All of that is something you will have to investigate. I'm gonna keep shooting this thing. Really enjoyable, and I just think the fact that it's so compact makes it more likely that I'll bring it with. Okay, we're looking at my target that was at 55 yards. Now there's always going to be kind of a cold bore change when I have a can on, in particular the can that I'm using right now. In the future, I anticipate that I will not have as much of a cold bore shift because of a can that I'm going to switch to, but that aside, I'm very happy with that result. That's a little under an inch at 55 yards with a 9-inch barrel, carbon fiber. And remember, these are the first shots out of the barrel, so it's probably only going to improve from there. I'll go ahead and send a few more down, and I'll comment if there's anything noteworthy. But right off the bat, this is kind of what I anticipated, expected, and it's absolutely accurate for squirrel hunting and the things I'm going to do right around 55 out to 100 yards. I'm just really impressed that the initial shots were as consistent as they were. Of course, I used some Aguila subsonics. Those did not print super well out of this. They did function, but they didn't print super well. And that was to get it on paper. And then I switched over and it happened to be almost zeroed right there. That's actually a pretty decent group right out of the gun. Maybe not for like your precision 22 rifles, but remember what I'm shooting. I'm shooting a Ruger Charger with a barrel I just jammed in, and it's still giving me pretty realistic groups for hunting. I'll shoot a little more and we'll see what else I can do. Okay, here's another 10-shot group. Actually, I would say it's tightening up. That is a 1/2 inch right there. There's usually that first round with this can that tends to go a little low, just like the other group did. If you can see that, it tends to be one that's a little low. If I had some gas already in the can, I think it would have been tighter. But actually, that's a 1 MOA group with a 9, and then there is that fly over here. And since it was the first round, I feel comfortable in attributing that to the can and buildup of gas, and then it has a little bit more consistent point of impact. But look at that group. That is really respectable, and that's with SK Biathlon. I'm up here in the north, and that stuff tends to shoot a little better. So for me, reliability is always going to be number one, and with a part that I put in, I want to make sure it's reliable. I've tested it with thousands of rounds now, and it looks like it's very, very reliable. The same ammo that the Action was reliable with before is still reliable. If anything, I'm actually wondering if I'm getting a little bit better grouping with a couple of match rounds. Wolf Match Extra seems to be doing really good out of this barrel. I'm really happy with that performance so far. And then some of the ones that were doing average are still doing average, so it didn't take bad bullets and make them magic. But I'm going to go ahead and run a little bit more of this Wolf Match Extra, which I really like. It suppresses well, it's precise, and I can use it for hunting. It just runs so well out of this 9-inch barrel. But yeah, getting back to it. So reliability is number one. And then for me, I would say there's a balance between weight and precision when it comes to something like this. About a year ago, I really wanted to find an auto-loading 22 pistol, something like what you're looking at here, exactly, actually, that I could throw on a decent optic. I could put in a really good trigger, and it would have to be reliable. It would have to at least keep up an inch at 50 yards, which this has totally proven to do for 5-shot groups, absolutely proven. And then be able to stretch it out a little bit further for hunting shots. This isn't ideal, but Normally I'd have my backpack to rest on. I'm gonna just mag rest this and throw a few here at 80, and we'll see what those groups look like in a second. Actually, we probably won't because the sun's going down, but even the little target is getting some hits on it. I'm pretty happy with this. Got a little bit of a hostage target situation down there that I set up. That's kind of fun. It's just a very lightweight barrel. So fun. It's very maneuverable because of that low weight ratio and the fact that it still hits the targets every time. That just makes me happy. Okay, I'm not much for CCI ammo in general. It's just not my flavor. I don't typically go with that, but let's try some CCI subsonic. This is 1050 stuff, and I've got a 4-inch target at about 75-80 yards. There we go. There's 2 in a row. Hopefully you can hear those okay. CCI appears to be running okay. I would run a few hundred just to double check first if it was me. Empty. So the CCI runs well if you're a guy who's just kind of committed to running more of your big box brand ammo, or you're gonna go to Walmart and pick up stuff. It looks like CCI is gonna run probably pretty fine. If it runs the subsonic, in my experience, it usually runs most of the other kinds that CCI offers. And the barrel itself is affordable enough. It's not cheap, but it's affordable enough. You can buy a heck of a lot of CCI with the savings you're gonna get over some of the other brands that are making carbon fiber barrels. I know that much. I already got my daughter to help me out. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a few rounds at 110. We'll see what kind of performance this can do on steel, and then I'll move over to 220. All right, let's go ahead and go over to 220. At 220, this gun is super dirty too. Yeah, it's gonna have failures to eject, failures to fire. It's really, really dirty, but I think I can still get a few hits here. I'll just have to run it like a bolt gun for a little bit. Normally, I think the regular match ammo doesn't give me this problem, but hundreds of rounds in suppressed, it will get dirty. Reliability is still pretty good on this action as a whole. I think with better ammo, I'd have a little bit better hit ratio, and maybe if I didn't run the full extended mag on there. There it is. One last time, I want to give a quick shout out to some of the brands that helped me put this together. Thank you to Summit. First and foremost, I do not take it for granted for the opportunity to try out some of your products. This did not let me down. I'm very happy with this concept, the barrel, the quality, everything that you put together here is well thought through, it's machined well, and it allowed me to get the exact fitment that I wanted, as well as keeping it suppressed and it's affordable. So Summit Precision, thank you for sending things out to the channel. Discovery has sent me a bunch of optics over the last few years, and you'll hear more about that at SHOT Show, as I'll be there as a rep to help them explain their products to potential customers. So you'll see more SHOT Show footage with Discovery optics. This optic actually helped me get past 300 yards on clay pigeons. I found it to be fairly repeatable and reliable after I cleaned out the barrel. Armstrong Precision actually sent out this rail. This is their 1022 0 MOA rail. It's a very low profile rail, but you can see that it has a cantilever to it, allows me to put on optics like this LPVO and other creative optics, gives you a little bit more rail space, which 1022 pistols in general, or just the 1022 platform, usually doesn't have a lot of optic space, so I found that the cantilever on this Armstrong Precision rail was very useful. And then of course, Kid Innovations. Thank you to Kid for being a supporter of the channel. They sent out their 1 pound trigger, and this trigger pack is my favorite. It is probably the best trigger I've ever used on an auto gun. I absolutely love it. It's predictable. It allows me to hunt with it reliably and safely, and then also just shooting match grade ammo and getting match grade results because it's a nice light trigger. I found this to be kind of my go-to, and I kind of robbed this from whatever build I'm working on and put it in the new one because I like it that much. So if you're like me, one of the important things that I'm going to ask when I watch a review is not only do I want it, but is it worth it? And there's a couple ways to look at that. I'll try to touch on both aspects. Number one, functionality, and then number two, I'll get to aesthetics. But functionality, I would say, just personally, I think this is increased in functionality and probably quality and fit and finish with that. And that matters a little bit when you're talking about this type of build, because you're taking a barrel and you're ramming it into another receiver that had a different barrel previously in there. And the fact that the tenon is oversized and it fits in so well that you can, by sanding, you can hand fit and get like a custom fit in there is really cool. It didn't take long, it wasn't really hard, you know, no gunsmithing knowledge is required, but you can get that premium, really nice tight fit, which is exactly up to your standards, which is great. And I think the price represents the fact that you're gonna put in a little bit of elbow grease into that. You have to remember that these receivers from Ruger are produced en masse, so it's better, it's safer to oversize the parts that are going to install in the lower receiver and let you hand fit it so that you can get a really nice match and probably closer to match results or precision results. They're not going to advertise this as a precision barrel because it's a carbon fiber barrel. That's not what they're getting after. It's on a Ruger Charger besides. And so that's not their words, but I'm going to tell you that it fits so well. And when I started running match ammo through it, I was getting incredible results. And I mean 5-round and 10-round groups. Maybe with a 16-inch barrel version of this, it would have less flyers. There's an occasional flyer in there, and I'm real good with that, because what I mean by flyer is a 1/2 inch group at 50 yards opening up to 3/4 inch, maybe 1 inches if it's a bad flyer with not super great ammo. But with match ammo, I'm seeing really nice results with this barrel, and I attribute some of that to the fact that the fitment is good, it's very precise, it's dang near exact where it ought to be. The bolt itself meets up really nicely, and it wasn't hard to do. So that's great. Functionality on this end is very, very good. It's lighter. I like the balance of this thing. It's just so carryable. This is easy for me to stow away in my backpack, especially if I don't have the can on it. I can fit this in most of my backpacks and go hunting with it and quickly throw on a can. It's been really convenient. Again, functionality for the win. And then it's threaded. This is a big deal to me for the Ruger Charger because with 22 ammo, I can suppress it well and it sounds great suppressed. I wanted something that aesthetically matched, and then functionally, I just didn't want the contours to be goofy and have weird transition lines. And I needed it to be concentric with that steel sleeve in the middle. All of that, again, functionality was great. I have no qualms. The fit and finish of it now is the next part I'll talk about. Fit and finish is very good. Where the carbon fiber starts on this end, right here, transition, perfectly smooth. Back here, perfectly smooth. I've seen more expensive carbon fiber barrels that had not as good a fit and finish as this one does. And I would say this one's on the affordable end of carbon fiber barrels for Ruger Charger barrels. So aesthetically, very, very good. I love the black. There's lots of color variations. You don't have to go with something as dull as I did. I just thought it looked good as a whole on this build. The only real flair to this build is this and this. The rest of it all kind of blends in pretty good. I think it's an awesome, awesome fitment. People ask, hey, what is that barrel? And they know it's not from Ruger. They can tell that it's a high quality precision barrel. And that's exactly what it is. It's a high quality, precision made barrel. And I'm getting dang near precision results considering it's a pistol, but at least hunter quality results, at least plinking quality, like above average plinking quality results for sure. You can expect that. And it does fit a little better in this chassis. My opinion, the other barrel just didn't look very good in the chassis, and most of you, if you get a Ruger Charger, you're going to be getting some sort of aftermarket stock or at least an attachment for a brace or something. I recommend going with the Deep 6. I think it's great, or maybe even the Odin, and that's where Summit Precision comes in really handy again. They don't only have a 9-inch version. I went with that because I wanted a little more velocity than the 7-inch. They do have a 7-inch variant, which looks really neat as well. They have a few versions for Ruger Charger pistols. Check out those and other color variations, but for me, functionality wise, aesthetically, very pleased, and it fits perfectly in this Deep 6 chassis. I think it matches up nicely with the black and just those little tints of carbon fiber contrast. Overall, this has been a lightweight hunter, a plinker, and for me, I'm actually shooting groups with it out to, I shot it out to 325, and it was fairly reliable for impacts once I cleaned it. That's probably one thing for consideration. 22 just gets dirty fast. Auto 22s get dirty fast. Suppressed pistols that don't have complete burn off, that are auto pistols, they're not going to go quite as long as my bolt actions probably will be with longer barrels. I find that they're just a little more touchy for accuracy and cleaning schedules. But by touchy, I don't mean like 100 rounds or 200 rounds. Oh, they can do fine with that. It's into the hundreds typically, and that's dirty, dirty, dirty at 400 or 500 rounds. It's really dirty. Functionality is still pretty good, and reliability of the action is still pretty good. But I find that the chamber on this does need to be cleaned out around that time, or I'm going to start having reliability issues, primarily because I shoot that waxy ammo, match grade ammo. It has some sort of coating on it, and that tends to fill up barrels, chambers, and especially cans, at least the cans I've been shooting. So it's just a good idea to run a bore snake through, and it's not really more complicated than that. I run a bore snake through, sometimes a brush, and then I start shooting it, and accuracy snaps back at that moment. And I mean really good accuracy or consistency with the ammo that I'm using. That's all I have for you today, guys. If you want to, it would really help my channel if you would subscribe, maybe like this video, and if there's something that you want to see done with this barrel, or you have questions about this barrel, or maybe Summit Precision, the build as a whole, comment those down below and I will try to get to those and answer them as soon as I can. Stay tuned to the channel because I have some SHOT Show footage coming out in the next month or so, and you're going to hear more about Discovery Optics there and maybe some of these parts as well.